Ready?
Hello and welcome to Rhythm and Pixels, a video game music podcast. This is episode World 27, episode 3. Podcast episode 27-3. We're your hosts. My name is Rob Nichols.
And Rob's struggling with numbers.
That's every week. Every week you'll listen to me struggle with numbers and Purnell make fun of me struggling with numbers.
No, I'm laughing with you.
We are in fact a video game music podcast. We listen to music from all consoles and all generations. We pick a topic, we find some guests, we listen to some music, and we chat about it, but ultimately it's just awesome music and awesome friends. And Purnell, it's good to see you. You have your lamp on. I don't usually get to see you.
I turn it off and on occasion. It just depends on how I feel at the time.
See, you're growing that beard back, though.
I'm cutting it off probably tomorrow.
This is for the audio only group. Purnell's growing a beard.
It's coming back. I'm seeing that person again, i.e. the person that I cut it off for in the first friggin' place. But as a friend, and yet at the same time, I'm still cutting this beard off though. I gotta be hairless for some reason. I don't know.
I think you're very handsome at this level. I think you're very handsome, shaved. But at the level you were at about 2 weeks ago was a little crazy.
Purnell goes from pandemic beard to who's this infant?
I don't know. You were like a ZZ Top to just back to a child. I don't know what happened.
Just Z bottom.
Yeah. ZZ Bottom. That is a completely different band, and we're not going to get. This is a family show.
Oh mercy.
On today's show, we have a very special guest with us, someone who reached out to us who wanted to hang out and listen to some music with us and to get to know our audience and get to know you. We have Nick Marinelli. Nick, how are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me.
Great. Thanks for coming on the show. We'll see you next week. All right. Back to the beard.
Oh, stop it, you.
No, Nick, tell us what you're up to. What are some things that people can find on the internet related to Nick Marinelli?
I'm the former CEO of MagFest, Music and Gaming Festival. Mm-hmm. I stepped away from MagFest summer 2019 to pursue my own business of independent contract event management, concert production, and also I started with a friend a video game music band booking agency called Video Games in Concert, with the goal of getting video game bands out of just the convention scene like PAX and MagFest, and getting them booked at some real mainstream venues and festivals where they can get the recognition and the paycheck they deserve.
I really agree with that, because we listen to some groups and some bands on this show that are fantastic, like just not even that we love them because of the content, but like technically and just really, really great musicians.
And to be blunt, there's something to be said about VGM cover bands when they play tracks, whether it's a cover or just an original cut even, where it honestly, if you didn't know it was from a video game or you didn't know what video game was from, typically it would sound, you could just feel like you're at a rock concert or at just a really cool show. And it happens more often than people like to think it is. Like, for example, there's a band that we like called Steel Samurai, one of our favorite bands, and their main shtick is to play obscure tracks, which means most of their audience has no idea what the hell they're playing to. Mm-hmm. And it ultimately shouldn't matter because they rock when they do it. So it's like, this is from some game I've never heard of called Gimmick or whatever. Like, who cares?
That's their best track. It's from Gimmick and from Airzone.
It is. Yeah, it is. And it's like, but that's the thing. It's like, I could totally see that being played at a rock concert. And as long as you are outright saying, like, look, this is a cool rock band. Here's some cuts they put out. And if they just name the track without saying, this is from a game called Airzone, he's like, this is called Rock to Infinity. And they're just like blaring it out. People would love it. I think they would, you know? So, and the fact is, I think it's just, and I think you may be the pioneer for this in a sense, but I just don't think too many people actually went to make that jump yet to just say, let's just get out of this niche and go all out and see what we can do.
Well, I mean, I'm definitely not the first to try to bring that thing to the mainstream. Like, you've had these big orchestral concert tours, like Distant Worlds, Play, Video Games Live.
That's true.
Not to be confused with Video Games in Concert.
No, of course not. Video Games Live is Tommy Tallarico is involved with that, right?
That's correct. He's the guy behind that. So yeah, I mean they've been doing that for a long time. I guess what's maybe unique for us is that we're trying to be like a production that venues can purchase, can book, rather than like doing our own tour.
Sure.
And also not an orchestral thing, which is
and also I feel like because of MagFest, a lot of these groups and a lot of these artists are all like condensed into this mid-Atlantic, Eastern America area somehow. Even if they're from like the Midwest or from like the South, they're all coming here. Maybe that's my perception.
I mean, I know a guy that moved from the Philippines to Washington D.C. so it could be closer to MagFest.
Wow.
So it's cool. It's cool how it is. It's just somewhat centered around Mid-Atlantic, but like I'm so blown away by how much it's evolved over the past, I want to say 25 years, when like the only people I can meet there in the game music were in the IRC channel at vgmusic.com.
Mm-hmm. We're getting some deep cuts here, and we're getting some real deep cuts here. We're talking about, yeah. Oh man, what were some of the earliest like remixes or arrangements that both of you have ever heard, like online?
Mini bosses.
Yeah,
Pretty much the mini bosses. Like when Mag 1 happened, and the idea of like getting bands to show up, like Joe handled all that junk then, but I was just like, all I know are the mini bosses, so anybody else, this is a bonus. And then I learned about the 1-ups from that, so they were the second bands I heard. And then beyond that, it was just all flavor candy. There were other bands, but I didn't know of any of them back then.
Mini Bosses were the first band I had heard of, and I think it was in like the July 2000 issue of EGM or something like that. And I was like, what the?
It was such an amazing mix. Like, who the heck thought to do that? And we need more of it.
And like prior to that, I think the only thing that you would call like an arrangement or remix was on vgmusic.com, the MIDI repository of game music.
Yes.
There was some versions that were like the XG version, which I don't know, like they changed up the instruments or try to make it like more bombastic and less of a straight cover.
I had MP3s of like anime theme songs, and then MP3s of like All Your Bass All Belong to Us, like remixes and stuff. And I was like, oh, this is cool. All right, I can get into this.
Now, one thing I forgot, I realized
what's going on?
I realized I should have said something that I totally forgot about, though. The Mini Bosses was the first band I heard. But I do think, as far as just like general covers go, I want to say OC Remix was around back then, though. Like, to just hear like anyone just say, I want to do something with this music. I have to go back and double check because it's been
I believe OC Remix has their own podcast, and they are therefore our mortal enemies. So don't ever listen to their show.
We need to unite together to save the world from bland entertainment.
Of course.
So, listen to all of us.
All right. So Nick, when we all agreed to do this podcast, and you gave us the money, and we said yes.
Well, I mean, I didn't agree to it.
Oh, you didn't? Oh, well, I mean, maybe we should.
Oh man, I feel bad because I interrupted your really good joke. Let's try that again. Let's workshop.
No, it's fine. Trust me, the joke was not that good. Anyway,
once we signed the blood pact,
you suggested we do deep cuts, and of course that's very subjective to whoever's listening. But what was it about deep cuts? Like, what drew you towards wanting to share that kind of those tracks with us?
And I asked that because, to my understanding, a deep cut by Webster's definition is an incision that goes beyond the top layer of the skin. So I've been very perplexed this whole time of what the heck was he talking about. So
well, I mean, if you all are a VGM podcast, I figured you know some of those hidden gems, and not only do you know the hidden gems, you'll probably stab yourself in the eye with a screwdriver if you have to hear Mega Man 2 Wily 1 more time.
Yes, I have, actually. That's why I got these glasses. They're corrective.
You'd be surprised how how many times I can stab myself in the eye. No, you'd be surprised how often, like, we'll go back to and have some shows where we listen to like maybe like, you know, quote unquote crowd pleasers or more mainstream music. And so much of it is so good for a reason, you know, because it's just excellent music. It's excellent. It's composed very well. And it just sounds great. But Purnell...
But with that said... There's always a but. I always reference Mega Man 2 Wily 1 for the reason specifically that even though I agree in that there's a reason why it's, you know, so well overplayed, the downside is when those overplays overshadow other stuff that deserve just as much credit. But they kind of get ignored because, like, someone's like, okay, here is Mega Man 2 Wily 1 on a ukulele. There was Mega Man 2 Wily 1 on soda cans and an empty container that has 3 X's written on the side.
Yo,
like,
Purnell,
it's just...
Purnell, have you heard me? Have you heard my Mega Man 1, my Mega Man Wily 1 on spoons? Yeah.
Actually, I do want to hear that.
I got like 2 million hits on SoundCloud. It's crazy. I'm like, yo. Yeah.
Oh, it's happening. It's coming. It's doing it.
Discord's cutting out the spoons, unfortunately.
Oh, well, we saw it live, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah,
we got the real spoon.
That's for us. That's for us.
I think I got it on my local recording, so you can splice that in.
I'll edit it in some spoons. I'm sure I have spoon samples. That might be the one sample I don't have.
Well, you were listening to AMSR videos earlier, so I'm sure someone's got some spoons
Look,
on there.
no judgments, all right? Okay? It's just for fun. Don't yuck my yum. All right, so let's get into some tunes, and we can talk about how we discovered them. Like, for me, I really like getting into this because I get to kind of go back and remember like arcade music that I really enjoyed when I was younger, because I feel like, especially with arcade, I don't think I trust any arcade tracks, which is stupid, but with arcade music, like, you kind of hear it, but then like you don't really hear it until you download the soundtrack or the OST, and you can kind of actually have fresh ears on it and you don't hear the din of a full arcade.
The arcade.
Anyway, I forgot where I was going with this, but
you're saying, Nick, what's your first pick?
Yeah, Nick, kick us off so I stop talking, please. This is the most I've talked all weeks. Thanks, COVID.
Okay, so this first one is the Museum, the intro stage from Rockman and Forte for the Super Famicom, and it's by Naoshi Mizuta. Yeah. You're listening to The Museum, the intro stage from Rockman and Forte for the Super Famicom, composed by Toshihiko Horiyama and Naoshi Mizuta and Akari Kaida. Oh, man.
That bass. I mean, I guess why they call it bass in America, right?
Oh, geez. A very fantastic track to play out a very convoluted entry route to a museum.
So why is it convoluted? Is it like a very long stage, or is it just?
I mean, Nick could probably say it better, but I feel like if I remember correctly, it was like you were like there was a part where you're like on a submarine, like on top of a submarine, and you're climbing up ladders and you're going all over the place, but really is really just supposed to be the robot museum. Like, you should be able to just go through the front door or climb onto the roof and come down, but now there's submarines and stuff. Or whatever.
The Mega Man 7 Robot Museum was just a hallway with glass containers in the back with the Robot Masters. No enemies other than the boss. Whereas, it's an obstacle course in the Rockman and Forte one, and the song is just unnecessarily jazzy. It did not have to be that way.
I want to say this track and Dynamo Man's are like the best ones from that game, hands down.
I sometimes wonder if the composers come up with these like really jazzy, really interesting tracks, and then they're like, well, we can't use them for this stage. Well, we can't use them for that stage. Well, this is really thematic for this. We have to leave this. And they left with this music, and they said, well, where does it go? Staff roll? Boss parade? Boss parade. Let's put it over there. And it's like, yes, I want that music.
Get it in there.
Oh, man. The piano and the keyboard solo. The keyboard solo for a Super Famicom track is surprisingly crisp. It's very crisp, which is really just refreshing to hear. Crisp and refreshing aren't words I usually use with a Super Famicom track. But you brought it with us.
I love the part where it kind of like harmonizes with itself as it's doing that run upward.
Don't always hear that on the Super Nintendo because they use those sampled instruments, and sometimes those instruments kind of can go weirdly out of tune when they pitch them around.
I'll tell you one thing about Rockman Forte that gave me a big surprise back in the day, though, which is that prior to that, when of course we had Mega Man 8 in the States, it was released on the PlayStation 1, and they talked about how it utilized the power of the PlayStation to give us the next generation of Mega Man games. And then you see Rockman and Forte on the Super Nintendo playing pretty much just as well as Mega Man 8 did, also with really good music. And it started to make me rethink, what did the PlayStation bring to the Mega Man table at this point? We're getting it on the Super Nintendo right now.
I brought it to the USA, I guess, because we didn't see the game until like 5 years later.
Yeah.
right. On the Game Boy Advance, no less.
Yeah. And the Game Boy didn't have the full frame that the Super Nintendo one did, so you had to like hit a button to scroll the screen up and down if there was something that was too high up.
Wait, seriously?
Wow, I never played this one.
It never really came into play until like the very final boss, because he was tall enough that he filled the whole screen. So you had to kind of.
Because I never played it on the Game Boy Advance. I only played on the Super Nintendo via, the ROM and all that was floating around. But the fact that you had to scroll the screen up in a Mega Man game just seems like it breaks the flow a little.
It was not that much. It was like maybe like an eighth, a tenth of the screen. Just get a little bit like, oh, it's up there. Because it's the difference. Because the Game Boy Advance had the widescreen aspect ratio at the 4:3.
Which was a great decision on Nintendo's part. I mean, after having like the vertical Game Boy for so long, going wide, you got to go wide.
GBA was the meat and potatoes back then. I have no shame in admitting that until the DS came out, it was top dog for me. It was like having a portable Super Nintendo in your pocket.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to move on to Purnell's first track. This is an odd episode.
So honestly, this was an interesting episode for me of trying to choose tracks. Because when someone says deep cuts, I'm like, what do I do? On one hand, there's stuff I want to pick. On the other hand, I'm like, maybe I don't have enough or stuff that I should pick. But in the end, I think I made some pretty decent choices, though I did have one too many, which maybe we can play at the end of the show because...
Yeah, I ended up picking a bunch too. I just had too many.
But I do feel like after listening to it in remembrance again, I need to go with this one over the other, so maybe that'll be the end song. So this episode, I'm going to go with the track from Denpa Men 3, The Rise of Digitoll. This is the boss battle theme from that game, and it was released on the Nintendo 3DS as a downloadable title. It's composed by Mitsuhiro Kaneda. Welcome back. You're listening to the boss theme from the game Denpa Men 3, The Rise of Digitoll for the Nintendo 3DS, composed by Mitsuhiro Kaneda. And yeah, I had another track in mind, but I ultimately decided that it had to be this one. There was no other option but this one. And I hope that you guys heard why that was, because I love this tune so much. There's so much going on.
I was thinking that this is a Purnell track because it's fast, it's crazy. It's a boss track, so it totally fits in there. And Nick, you were saying something about like how it was kind of evolving into different movements.
Well, I liked how it really brought the loop home at the end. Like you felt it coming back to where it was, and it just really stuck the landing.
That's something so unique to video game music, and not so much today, especially when there's a lot of adaptive music in modern video games, or especially like AAA modern video games. But the artistry that comes into crafting a loop of the theme of the song, of the melody and a verse, chorus, verse, but still loops in on itself, that it doesn't feel repetitive. There's artistry to that you don't really hear in anything else. Like, oh, I want to hear, The Weeknd, but I want to hear it looped 50 times over, Like, I want to hear, like, how's it going to resolve on itself where I can just listen to it over and over again while I'm trying to stop on
one for that.
I was showing that last track, the Rockman and Forte track, to my father, who's a musician unlike me, and I didn't have the vocabulary to describe this until he pointed it out. But you get to the end of the song, and the last bar doesn't resolve the chord. It doesn't resolve until you get back to the first bar of the song when you loop it again, and that's what kind of pulls you, like you're waiting for it to finish, but doesn't actually finish until the song starts again. But the song has started again, so you have to keep going.
So it resolves on itself.
Right. It's like a Breaking Bad episode.
Very fitting. It's like, crap, I can't stop. I got to keep going. What's happening next? I love this track so much. I love the OST to pretty much all the Denpa Men games, which is both a good thing and a bad thing. You gotta explain it.
I've seen this is Denpa Men 3 with a whole bunch of subtitles. What is going on with these Denpa Men?
I gotta say this beforehand, though. The funny part is that I bought this game last night, because I realized that it was the one Denpa Men game I never ultimately purchased. I bought the demo. I had the demo for the third game, but I had 1 and 2, and I love them. It's just, and 3 is more the same, so it's not like I don't understand the games. But the general idea is that the Denpa Men live in a special world on a wacky little island, and they're pretty much like radio wave, critters. And the way that you meet them and grab them and bring them to the island is you bring up the 3DS's camera mode and you spin around the room you're in or whatever. And if you're in an area that has a lot of radio wave signals or signals from like your microwave or from like your from your modem or whatever,
like Wi-Fi,
it picks up all of it. Yeah, Wi-Fi, microwaves, all that. If you're just spinning it around, you'll see Denpa Men flying around your room, and you want to snare them by shooting with nets. And if you catch them in the net, you collect the Denpa Men in your house or your office or your car or whatever, and then they become members of your town, and they join your battle party, and you raid random dungeons and fight monsters like an RPG.
All right. So that's Japanese. All right, so I was like, wow, this is such a weird Japanese game, right? It just sounds Japanese, but at the same time, I'm thinking like, no, this sounds like gnomes in your garden, they're out there, it's magic. They're out there. That's
pretty much what this is. The
Denpa Men
are little radio,
but then
wave
you
gnomes.
Catch them, and then you battle them in an RPG setting. Now that's
what I do like is you don't battle each other though. They're all friends, and they're battling to save the world, the Denpa Men world, from like evil villains and stuff like that. So it's not like Pokemon.
With Pokemon.
Yeah, they're all heroes, and it's cool because they come in short, they come in tall, big head, small head, wacky ears, normal ears, and they all have different elemental stats and traits, and it's a legitimately good game, and the battles are fairly straightforward, and they don't drag, because the way it works is you'll have like 8 Denpa Men in your party, and they can all do magic spells or whatever if you have them, but if you don't want them to do something special, they'll just rush the guy and just beat him up. So it's like, I want these 2 guys to use a spell, and everybody else just rush the guy. And they'll just like run up and beat him up, and then the other guy will like, okay, well, now that you guys did your thing, here's a fire spell. And it's freaking great. And then you have this great music playing over all the stuff you do.
This is frantic. So there are essentially fairies flying around my house that live off of radio waves that are just ready to start a fight. They're just like they're just raring to go.
It's like Wi-Fi packets or something that the because I mean if it's all like 802.11 or whatever, the 3DS is receiving it even if it's not doing anything with it.
So I think that's what makes me wonder. Like maybe it's just a matter of like, because I don't think it's always. It's maybe like different signals. So I have to look into it more because it's been years.
It sounds a lot like what was that one game where you put a CD in and it would read the CD?
Monster Rancher.
Yeah, it would read the disc and make up random monster out of it.
And I'll be blunt, there aren't many games like it, but I'm a sucker for stuff like that, where it's like, you take normal crap in your house, and it's content for your game. Yeah. That Garbage Pail Kid book, every Garbage Pail Kid is a character in your game. Like, that would be a game I'd play.
Behind you having a stack of, what are those, Amiibos, or are they Skylanders?
Oh, these are Amiibos, and the Skylanders are up there.
Yeah.
There.
You just want, like, the meeting of the physical world to the digital world, right?
Which is a depressing concept because on one hand it's really awesome, but then I also know corporate America will ruin it like they did with Skylanders, where it was like, here's this cool idea, we can take these 20 figures and put them in a gajillion games, but nah, we'd rather just release 20 new figures for every game and make the old figures kind of obsolete.
They'll find it. Life finds a way, Pernell. Shareholders,
so milk your
shareholders
wallet.
Find a way. All right, so let's go into some more deep cuts here. I'm going to pick a track from the TurboGrafx 16. I'm calling this deep because Pernell is the only person I know who owns a TurboGrafx 16 from when I was a kid and from today as an adult. This is a track from a pool game. So you're shooting pool on the TurboGrafx 16. That's pretty obscure. This is a track by Takeaki Kunimoto. And this is In-Game Music 1 from the game Break In. And we're back. You're listening to In-Game Music 1 from the game Break In for the TurboGrafx 16 and PC Engine. This little track is composed by Takeaki Kunimoto. Judging from the reactions I was getting, I think you're both enjoying this one, right?
Oh, you picked a delectable dish of a ditty.
Very different from the last track, but a little more in line with the jazzy Rockman and Forte.
Yeah, I take back what I said about Rockman and Forte being unnecessarily jazzy. Like this was fresh. I was doo-doo facing hard. Like, it was nice.
Yeah, the bass face, the stank face on that one. So the TurboGrafx 16 had a wavetable synthesis chip inside the system. So it was like 8 or 9 channels of audio, and it was all different. They can essentially define the waves they were using. So they couldn't get a really clear bass tone like a Sega Genesis, but they can get these really deep, crunchy bass sounds by going really, really low with it. But at the same time, like, they could harmonize these really interesting, like almost keyboard or organ sounds, as you can hear in the second half of the song. And this track, man, I love it. It's something about I just knew that if I could find a pool game on an old system, I was going to find something good, and I'm so happy.
It's a given, of course.
Oh, it's a given. So yeah, if you're interested, if you like this, check out the rest of this game's OST. There's like 4 songs. They're all really short, but they're really good. They're really, really good.
And I'm always a sucker for somebody bringing up some TurboGrafx because I love the system, both it and then the future Duo. Yeah. And a large part of it was because of the sound that the thing would put out.
So interesting.
It's amazing how, like, even now, like, I feel
the
like
Duo
had
the CD on it, right?
Yeah, the Duo was Red Book Audio, right. All CDs, but the Hue cards, which is what this game was also, still put out some really unique stuff for the time that I still find to be unmatched on, like, the Super Nintendo or the Genesis even. Like, it was just... I love how I say the Genesis even, like, it was the superior. But, you know what I'm saying? Point is, I love the TurboGrafx sound, and it was very unique unto itself. So I'm always going to get excited when someone brings some heat from that console over to the page.
You had any experience with the TG16?
I don't. Like, I was under the impression that, you know, even though it was marketed going against the Genesis, it was more like a Nintendo. So I didn't even know that it was capable of making those kinds of sounds. Especially, I didn't know it was capable of making those kinds of sounds out of me. Daddy.
Well, I'm glad, yeah.
It's funny you say that, too, because thinking back on it, I could see it being more like a Nintendo than like a Genesis matchup, because it was very much heavily about the colorfulness of things, sure, which Nintendo was, and I feel like the Genesis first loadout of games were very quote-unquote mature colored, as in like very like gray and drab colors. Later on, of course, they had a lot of more colorful games that came along the pike, but I think about like freaking like Altered Beast and Mystic Defender and Shinobi, and all these games were like very like grim, like, hey, fighting monsters.
Definitely had a darker feel to it.
Man.
The Sega Genesis, and most Sega systems, like hardware systems, were emulating arcade titles. That's what they love to do. You know, the Master System and the Genesis and even the Dreamcast. Like in the arcade, the machines were using essentially what was called the Naomi hardware, the Naomi boards, which is the Dreamcast was modeled off of that. So they were all about bringing that arcade experience home, where with like the Nintendo was all about very unique, family-friendly type things. But the TurboGrafx, it was marketed to us, if I remember, to be like extreme. You know, you got to be a teenager or an adult to enjoy this system. But like, they had everything. It had so many interesting titles on it that I've never heard of that I would have loved.
And it's true, because when you think about it, if you talk to a person, the general public about the TurboGrafx, they usually reference Keith Courage and Alpha Zones and Bonk's Adventure, and that's pretty much it. But there actually were a surprising number of good games, even a few ports from the arcade that I had never heard of, aside from like Ordyne, which was like a Namco shooter or Namco shmup that I've only ever heard of on that system, despite it supposedly having an arcade version, which I've never seen. But yeah, I
Isn't it funny how we've gone from calling it a Doom clone to a first-person shooter to just shooter, and now we have to call them shoot-em-ups because we can't call them shooters anymore.
I just call them FPS. Like they're the FPS guys. Shooters is where it gets confusing, because side-scrolling shooters are shmups. First-person shooters are FPS. So what is just shooter? Like, what is a shooter? Like, I don't even know anymore. Like, I think it's almost like a dry term because we've already broken them all out.
Large amount of alcohol in a very small glass.
That's my kind of shooter.
Or hot peppers.
No, I don't have a gallbladder, Rob. I can't.
You can't do that.
Not anymore.
All right, we're coming around. We're coming back to Nick for your second deep cut pick.
Oh yeah.
Now remember, it has to go just below the skin.
You said no. We're saying deep cut.
Oh, good point. Way below the skin.
Are you with us, Nick? Can you hear us?
Yeah. Wait, sure. Okay, so this is a replay from Virtua Racing Deluxe for the 32X, which is not the same as the replay song on the Genesis version of Virtua Racing.
Well, I'm ready, because I've actually never played the 32X version.
But the same composer, Naofumi Hataya. So, this is going to be another banger.
One, two, three, go!
Oh my gosh, even with the sound effects, that's incredible. That was the replay music. The replay music. That was just the replay music. They did not have to go so hard. The replay music for Virtua Racing Deluxe for the Sega 32X, composed by Naofumi Hataya. Wow.
They had to go hard because, like I was saying earlier, it's the only full-length song in the entire game. Everything else is just stingers when you extend time or complete a lap.
Yeah, I have like really strong memories of playing this, especially in arcades. Just loving this game. I've always
seen it in the arcade before.
Yeah, I used to. There was a big sit-down one. I was up in
Yeah, it was pre-Daytona.
Yeah, I was a kid in somewhere in upstate New York visiting family, and there was an arcade that I just played this a whole bunch at for some reason. It was a sit-down cabinet, and I was super into it. But then I went back to find music from the game for the show, and I was like, "There's not much to it. There was hardly any music," which kind of makes sense for a lot of racing games at the time. Like it was either going to be Rockin', like Ridge Racer, or nothing. And okay, I'm generalizing.
$100. I mean, for $100, they could have put some music in the darn normal game. But I digress. I want to digress a little more because, if I remember correctly, Deluxe actually cost less than the original one too, didn't it?
That, I suppose, would make sense because I never thought about it before you just said it just now, but the original would have to have hardware built into the cartridge.
Yes.
Whereas Deluxe, the hardware is already built into the 32X, so you don't need to build it into the cartridge.
So again, I'm not sure we talked about it on the show proper or not, but yeah, the hardware being built into the cartridges themselves, like they did a lot on the Nintendo systems and the Super Nintendo. They did that with Virtua Racing, which they were doing at the same time as Stunt Race FX. Holy moly,
What's fun is if you take your Genesis and plug the AV plug directly into the TV when playing a 32X game instead of feeding it through the 32X and then to the TV, because what you get is everything that the Genesis renders without the stuff that the 32X renders. So because a 32X basically takes whatever the Genesis feeds to it and then just draws on top of it and then sends it out to your TV, like those 3DFX Voodoo 1 cards back in like 99 or something.
That just like triggered a weird memory.
Have you tried this before, though? Like,
yeah, and on what do you call it? Virtua Racing, you just see like the background and your speedometer on Chaotix. You don't get anything that scales on the special stages. You don't get anything 3D. You just see Knuckles running in space.
Like this adventure's a little different than I remember.
Oh, that's so interesting. Sega was doing
knowledge to the show.
Sega was doing some really interesting things. Just 2 weeks ago, it's 2 or 3 weeks ago, we had a whole episode on the Sega channel, music specifically on the menu systems in the Sega channel. And like, I feel like they were just sneaking in music and little goodies at every little details that would make people interested in these things, especially in these things like the 32X or, home internet.
It's interesting in a way when you think about it, because we love to give Nintendo tons of credit for being like pioneers, primarily in things like controllers and such. But I don't think enough credit goes to Sega for some of the stuff they've done. And here's just another example of that, because I can't think of any other consoles that function in the way like you just described the 32X running.
Yeah, I mean, you can call me a Sega fanboy, and I'll be okay with it.
Sega fanboy.
I'll you put it on my grave, right? Headstone.
Here lies Rob Nichols, Sega fanboy,
Sega fanboy,
DJ.
19XX to 20XX.
19XX.
Oh, mercy.
Yeah, I'm old. Come on, it's cool.
Hi, Grandpa.
We're hosting a podcast, clearly.
Do they still call them podcasts? I don't even know anymore. I'm so out of touch.
This is a fantastic track. I really loved how, like, I was glad that how long it was. Is what I was trying to get at. Like, I love that there was so much more to get into. So
I love that, and I think you were into it too. That syncopated ride.
Yes.
During the chorus. And
and they brought it back again, and I was like, yeah.
And it's the first and perhaps only saxophone solo in video game music that I know of.
I don't think the 32X added any additional power to the music of the sound chip, because it was still running off of the YM, the Yamaha chip that was inside the Sega Genesis.
The 2612.
Yeah, maybe added some more processing power, but some of the music that came from the games that were on the 32X is definitely interesting. And I think a lot of that has to do with just the late in the life cycle of these systems. You have the programmers and the musicians really know how to work these things.
Genesis music.
Way you work it, no diggity. I'm going to bang it out.
Genesis music had a capability of sounding really good, but you had to know what you're doing, because if you didn't, it sounded awful.
Yeah,
it sounded so bad.
Yeah, FM synthesis is that way, but
it's like riding too close to the sun.
I'm trying to think of a good example of
like no shade to Echo the Dolphin, but oof.
They could, yeah. I mean, there's some cool Echo tracks. Let me be honest, but I'll say you're either gonna like the music of the original Road Rash or you're not. It's that great, and one of our friends, Michael Bridgewater, who does another podcast to the UK, he'll say that you either like the music of Road Rash or you're wrong.
I like the music of Road Rash 2. Yeah. I can't speak for Road Rash 1.
All right, so I think we're around to you, Purnell.
Okay, I need to bring myself back, because I obviously was kind of still reeling from the concepts of why do we still call them podcasts. But I digress. Sent me to a magical rabbit hole.
Yeah, you have a bunch of tracks to pick from.
I do. Though I think ultimately I am going to go with this one. Like I said, I think maybe the Stretch Panic one can be at the end or something. But this comes from the game called I Am the Hero, released on Euro PSP and Steam, but I think it was on PS4 also.
Oh, I think it was Vita, or I saw it on a handheld. I'm just gonna.
It was probably on Vita, honestly.
I'm actually just gonna take it out. It's on thing.
Don't! It's part of the charm.
The website. The The track list on the website being inaccurate. It's part of the charm.
It's totally part of the charm. Let's go with Steam, PS Vita, and PS4 until further notice.
Okay.
But this track is titled Awoken, and it is composed by Liang Huang.
Road Rash mixed with a Meat Boy.
God, I want a good Meat Boy sequel, damn it. Welcome back. You're listening to Awoken from the game I Am the Hero for the PS Vita, PS4, and Steam, composed by Liang Huang. This is a good example of a track that I chose because when the submitter of the topic of the episode drops that topic, I definitely have a habit of not even making this up, sitting in the middle of the floor in my office and just kind of trying to dig real deep tracks or most likely games that we don't talk about enough on the show or I don't get to bring up enough on the show. The fact that it was a deep cuts episode just really drilled it in, and somehow I ended up pulling out I Am the Hero. So there you are. But this track,
I forgot about this game until I looked it up and I was like, whoa. This is a really cool beat 'em up.
It's like some people will tell you that it's not special enough or whatever, but I digress because let's be honest here, beat 'em ups work mostly because of the style and the frenetic aspects of the combat. Because you're generally only jumping and punching. Let's be honest, it's very rare where you can do anything beyond that. And this game has a number of fun combos you can put in. The enemy variety is pretty cool and interesting. It's got a very grimy aspect to it, and it doesn't try to take itself too seriously with the story. It's like, I'm a guy, I'm in the right place at the right time, and I kick ass. And that's how it is, and I'm good for that. That's all I want, you know? And I also like the fact that you can actually generally unlock the enemies, kind of like how Fighting Rage does it, where you can unlock the enemies and they can become playable characters too
cool.
throughout the game. But the OST for this is like very underground. It's got a very underground sound to it, and I adored it. Adore it so much. So it was an easy choice for me. It just makes me sad that we don't have 5 tracks this episode.
I was disappointed that the original soundtrack wasn't available on Steam along with the game. A lot of times, some of these indie titles are. They do that, but
I think it's starting to happen more often because they're realizing there's an audience for it.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that isn't the case. Especially for this one. This one's got a cool sound to it. It's definitely that I like the chunky. It's almost a grunge rock sound, but with the kind of the keyboard, 8-bit keyboard on top of that.
It seems kind of odd when you think about it too. Why is it that that's such a hard thing for companies to think about? I mean, it's easy money. You already have the sound files. Just dump them into a zip and say, "Hey, $10." All this music, you know.
Well, maybe there's some licensing issues. Maybe Nick has some insight on that.
The project manager of me says it's just another thing to think about. Like, it's hard enough to make sure that the game is bug free. Like, you got to worry about putting out a soundtrack as well.
If you pause this track at the 2-minute mark, you actually unlock a bonus track
that's
in
true.
the game.
We had a guest two episodes ago for the game Speed Limit, and he did the soundtrack for that. And they did a whole CD release for that, or I guess a digital release of the soundtrack for the game. I mean, the soundtrack was very important to the game. It all fit together, gameplay and music wise, very closely. But yeah, it's true. Project manager wise, that's like, you gotta think about the artwork. You gotta think about it's all mixed properly. You gotta release it. You gotta make sure it's credited correctly.
Yeah, and if the composer is the copyright holder versus the company, then like you gotta worry about revenue splits and registrations with ASCAP and BMI and all that.
Not a big fan of ass caps. Woof.
Yeah. Or BMI. Come on.
I hate the BMI. It's driving me crazy lately. Oh, mercy. But like, yeah, this is one of those games where I wish I could recommend to people more. Like, there's going to be an episode where it may not even be the topic, but it might just be somewhere in the episode like, here are all the games that I've played in the last 5 years that no one talks about, and we should all try them. And then I'll get lampooned for it 2 episodes later. What the heck, man? You recommended garbage.
The Purnell's picks. That's going to be a few episodes of those. It might be like an extended, like, okay, here's a list. All right.
Like that Simpsons episode. Like, here are all the people we forgot to credit on previous episodes. Scroll it up. But it's a podcast, so you can't scroll. You just got to
And you can't stop us because it's free. All right.
Touché.
All right, I'm going to get to my next track. Oh my gosh, what am I going to pick? It's going to be... It's a handheld system. It's going to be...
Choose that game from the Smurfs game. You know you want to.
You know I love Smurfs music. That's mainly Alberto Gonzalez. We're gonna listen to a Game Boy track. This is a game late in the Game Boy series, original handheld, but late in the system lifeline. This is a game called Afterburst. It's composed by Atsuhiro Motoyama. Purnell, do you know this game at all?
I have never heard of it, but it doesn't have anything to do with Starburst, does it?
No. It's a very interesting game. It's a kind of, if you would mix a platformer with the game Worms, it's that.
Okay.
Very strange.
I genuinely had a second notion of thinking this was a platformer where you ate beans to fart for extra jump boosting. And Afterburst.
That sounds like something out of Booger Man for the Sega Genesis, but that was actually that was on another episode called Games with Horrible Titles.
Forgive me, folks. I've been looking at a lot of Garbage Pail Kids lately. It's just kind of how it goes.
Get your head out of the garbage pail. All right, so this is Stage 3 from the game Afterburst for the Game Boy, composed by Atsuhiro Motoyama. You're listening to Stage 3 from the game Afterburst for the Nintendo Game Boy. And this track is composed by Atsuhiro Motoyama. And yeah, you know I gotta pick this track for those keyboard solos in there. This has got some
why it makes
amazing
me want to
tunes.
play Skate or Die Bad and Rad, but it does.
Yeah, it's got that feeling. And Nick, you mentioned Tim Fallon earlier. Yeah, that's
It had those guitar runs that remind me of something out of like Silver Surfer or Solstice or something like that.
Solstice. Yeah, definitely. I was thinking on Battletoads a little bit, maybe a little David Wise, like something.
Never think of Battletoads ever.
It's something about like that kind of fakey echo sound on the Game Boy. It reminds me of Western composers as opposed to the Eastern composers.
Oh, I can see. Yeah, like Western composers do a lot of like the echoing and also the arpeggios.
Say the word
chords.
arpeggio.
But did you know it was coming?
Yeah,
It's a running gag where like Rob started using it for the first time, I was like, what the hell is an arpeggio effect? And it just became this like commonly used thing. Always accurately used, mind you, but it always just seemed like so like, why does everyone know this word?
So if you understand an arpeggio and a chord, but then like on the Nintendo and the Game Boy, they had like an effect that would actually run it. And then a lot of especially the composers in the UK and Europe would run it super fast to emulate doing a chord with one channel, which never sounded like a chord. It just sounded like literal bleep bloops. But it has its own charming sound to it that you don't really get with other composers. Anyway, so I was saying this game is a lot like a platformer mixed with Worms because the levels are super, super short. You're just one robot. And you're jumping over like platforms and blocks, but you have to aim your gun at angles, and then you charge it, and then it goes in arcs across the screen. And your goal is to defeat one enemy and to defeat one like power core type thing. And it goes on. There's like 20 or 30 stages, but there's only 4 songs to the game, and it's very interesting. It's very different.
I'm impressed that a Game Boy can handle the trigonometry of calculating an arc.
Well, granted, it's very slow.
Okay.
Game Boy itself had a lot of games that kind of had that single screen puzzle aspect to it, which I always liked. Bubble Ghost, Daedalian Opus.
Bubble Ghost.
This game.
Yeah. The Daedalian Opus, that was almost like a Tanagram game, right?
Mm-hmm. Build a bridge using a bunch of tetrominoes and hope for the best. Game made you pull your damn hair out. Back then I actually had some.
That's where it all went.
Daedalian Opus took it.
Finally learned where all of Purnell's hair went. It was playing Game Boy games.
Pretty much. Cat Trap. That's another one I like.
See, so Nick never really played Game Boy. That's how you can tell. He's got all of his hair.
Still shining. He's like, yep, shimmer locks, baby. But like, I love the Game Boy. I love the puzzle games on that system.
Yeah,
and I wish I had more of them still in my inventory. But that's what emulation will cover for at least.
I was worried this wasn't going to be a deep cut or obscure pick because I was like, I know Purnell might know this track. I was worried that one of you might be like, oh yeah, that track. Everyone had this game.
Did I say I never heard of it? I meant I heard this game.
I played it to death, Rob. Why would you pick this track? All right, I'm going to turn this track down, all the way down. And we're going to get into the part of the show that we call the bonus round.
Bonus round.
And that that song means we're into the bonus round. The bonus round is where we play covers and arrangements and remixes based on our theme. And we like to start all of our picks off with our guest. So, Nick, what did you pick for our bonus round today?
I got a piece by the Washington Metropolitan Gamers Symphony Orchestra called Crystals of Ivalice, which is a medley from Final Fantasy Tactics Advance.
Ooh.
I realize Final Fantasy Tactics isn't exactly a deep cut, but Advance, I don't think as many people played that. I hadn't when I heard of this, and I went in this direction. One, because the last two ones I picked were more jazzy, so let me stay away from that. Two, I figured one of you would pick a rock arrangement. I'm like, let me go orchestra.
No, that's a good idea.
And four, my wife plays oboe in the orchestra.
Oh, cool.
Cool.
And I'm very, very, very proud of that. This one, it's a medley of Crystal and Painful Battle. Painful Battle is by Sakamoto. I don't know who Crystal is by someone else. I forget her name though.
I just realized you got to also you really like the idea of being able to say the word oboe.
It's a fun word, oboe.
It's a great word.
Well, let's listen to the track and let's listen for the oboe. was Crystals of Ivalice from Final Fantasy Tactics Advance, which is a medley of Crystal Battle and Painful Battle.
I got it backwards. Crystals by Sakamoto, and then Painful Battle. The main piece in that is Ayako Saso.
Oh, thank you.
Okay.
And what I love about that track is how the end they mash up the two together, and it's something that you could not get if not for the very skilled arrangement of the people
There was
in
literally
that
nothing
orchestra.
painful about that track whatsoever.
Yeah, it was very. Yeah, I did the way these two were combined very effortlessly, and performed by the Washington Metropolitan Gamer Symphony Orchestra, or
That's a lot of words.
the WMGSO for short.
Correct.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing this with us. You were right. Sometimes our bonus rounds go like all rock or all techno. So it's nice to have a fresh perspective here.
I agree. And I admit, I am generally the guy who's responsible for just over-rocking it out. This is a thing I do. It's a thing. But
So
honestly...
are some of your efforts in promoting concerts and other artists? I mean, you talked about not so much on the symphony side of things, but are you also helping to promote the Gamer Symphony Orchestra?
No, that's the Washington Metropolitan Gamer Symphony Orchestra is my wife's project, and she's giving me a very dirty look right now.
Oh, okay. I just
What did you do wrong? I think you
Well,
did
no.
right.
it's me making the assumptions. That's all.
No, that's her world, and I let her do her thing there.
Excellent.
Well, no, I don't let her do her thing. She does what she wants. She gave me a
You're
nod.
here to that.
I will edit that. No problem.
Yeah, I mean, I beyond VGIC, I've done some promotion for other bands like the 8-Bit Big Band.
Okay.
I was doing marketing direction for some of their shows before the apocalypse. I'm the manager for 88-Bit. I'm all about bits here. 88-Bit is a classical pianist that plays Nintendo music on the piano, and he's quite good at it.
Let your wife know that we both really enjoyed that song, and the symphony sounds fantastic.
And
They
we
both
caught the
really
oboe.
enjoyed the song, and they said the symphony sounds fantastic, and they caught the oboe and they loved it. She's smiling, huge
Okay.
grin.
There we go. You're back. You're back in.
I'm back in.
We're here for you, buddy.
All right, not
uh,
sleeping on the couch.
All right, Purnell, we are up to your next pick.
Okay, so funny enough, I went looking. Another habit I tend to have is like when I look for a lot of remixes and stuff, I kind of get pigeonholed on one specific game, and I really want to find something from it. In this particular case, I had mentioned earlier in the show as well, they announced that SNK collection recently, which made me think about Dark Arms, and I wanted a remix or a cover from the game Dark Arms. And up until as of like that day of searching for tracks, it didn't exist online anywhere. But I came across one that was made because they were also inspired by the exact same announcement. So I have the Dark Grab Day remix from the game Dark Arms on the Neo Geo Pocket Color, done by Bromery or Akai Mizu. And I hope you guys dig it. And even if you don't, play Dark Arms. welcome back. You're listening to us talk about me holding a Neo Geo Pocket Color. You're also listening to the Dark Grab Day remix from the game Dark Arms. I want to play Wild Arms too. From the game Dark Arms, from the Neo Geo Pocket Color, remixed and covered by Bromarie Akai Mizu.
Right. So for people who don't know about the Neo Geo Pocket Color, the system did not produce sounds like this song. This song has kind of a classic feel to it. Pernell lost something. Did he drop it?
No, I didn't.
Did he just?
No, I was setting it down.
I think don't throw it.
It's a gentle console. I don't want to hurt it.
But no, the system really had a sound closer to a Sega Master System, where it was like maybe 3 or 4 pure pulse wave channels and a noise channel. So it didn't really have this full kind of sound to it. So it's interesting hearing this arrangement in a classic style for a much more classic style sound trip.
It's really good. And again, I'm really glad it came across as I did, because he had released it literally hours before I started looking. So the timing was perfect for me. And I'm glad I was able to put it on here because, one, it brings attention to a game that is about to get a re-release and a collection very soon. Actually, it's already out now, digitally anyway, on the Switch. So people can try it. And also,
if you have a Switch,
it just sounds good too.
If you have a Switch.
If you get a Switch, Rob. Actually, no, wait, because I'm sure that Pro version is coming soon. So
no, that doesn't matter. That means that the original Switches might be cheaper. Question mark.
There you go. All the more reason to wait for the Pro, so you can buy that cheaper.
My kind of guy right there, the bargain hunter.
Yeah,
that's right.
I know I'm not going to play any games right away. So
when I get the Pro, buy my old one. There you go.
You won't. You're not going to sell me your old one. You're going to frame it.
Right. I'd sell this thing in a heartbeat if I got a Pro.
Yeah, no, you'll make some artwork out of it and stick it in your house and be like, "This is the machine that got me through the pandemic."
Actually, that's a good idea.
Yeah,
because it really did. That and La Mulana, baby.
Oh, yeah. All right, so my bonus round pick comes from the band Lame Genie. Yeah, so all through this last year, they've been doing, I think on their Patreon, they've been asking for people, they had a contest of like, what song are we going to cover next? And so they've been covering all sorts of interesting tunes, not all of them obscure, but some of them a little more out there. And this game is a little bit more not totally in the mainstream. This is from the game Rival Schools, and this track is On the Rooftop of Teo High School, and this is arranged and performed by Lame Genie. love the snap, that little snappy thing they do there. That's so good. That was On the Rooftop of Teo High School from Rival Schools, composed by Setsuo Yamamoto, arranged and performed by Lame Genie.
They did that track justice.
Yeah, they crushed it. They brought all of the energy of the original and then added more energy to it, and now I need a nap. That's what they did.
I need a nap time.
Yeah, I mean, they're all fantastic players, and then they got great production chops too. Like the recording just sounds great, and they're during pandemic, the streams they've been doing, they got a pro setup. The whole light show and everything. It looks so cool, and I haven't seen any other band doing something that high tier during these streams.
Yeah, I'm not trying to disparage any other band. There's so many groups that we enjoy listening to. And that I love personally, but they have a level of not just production, but of technical skill that comes along with this, and they just play so well together. Another group that is also just recording at such a high level is Knights of the Round. Really heavy stuff. Not music that I generally like just go to, but when I hear it, I'm like, damn, that's good. You know.
That's delicious. And also, I'm going to just slip in here, and the off chance they listen to this episode, do drive-in theater next.
Not to change the topic, like Night of the Round, they're probably one of the heaviest VGM bands out there, but yeah, they are good at what they do.
I actually have one of their shirts in my other room now. It's like their Ultra shirt.
Yeah, heavy is like an understatement with those guys. It's
right.
But also the nicest, so friendly. Like I finally got to meet them in person. We had them on the show, I think either for a full episode or briefly, but I got to meet them at MagFest at their merch counter or whatever, and they're just so nice. They were just really open to talk about their like how they perform together. They talked about like how he records, and I had questions about their mixes and everything. It just got really nerdy with him, and he was so into it. I'm like, that's why it's working. It's like a mixture of rock star and nerd have to like mix together.
Right, like the drummer in Lame Genie is just unreasonably jacked. He looks like a Rob Liefeld character.
I know. I got like it's so impressive that he took up like 2 seats at our show and in Too Many Games. It was awesome. Anyway, for more information on the bonus round part of our show, go to rhythmandpixels.com. There we're going to have links to all of these artists' Bandcamps and SoundClouds and everywhere where you can stream the music, buy the music, and support these amazing artists. I want to thank you for joining us on episode 27-3 of Rhythm and Pixels. This is Deep Cuts with our new best friend. Pernell, you're out.
No!
Nick
Sorry,
Marinelli. Thanks for coming on our show, man.
Thank you so much for having me. This was really fun. I'd love to do it again.
Oh, good.
I'm glad to hear it. We definitely want to have you back. This has been fun. Deeper cuts.
And then deepest cuts.
We're going full heart transplant on the next one. Rob's like, what?
So anyway, before we start saying our goodbyes and talking about some other stuff, can you just give us a quick little rundown of where people can find you on the internet and what you're up to?
Sure. The video games and concert website is gamemusic.rocks. And you can see our lineup of artists there, and if you know any venues, festivals, office parties looking for bands, we can help them out. You can reach me at Nick at Game Music Rocks. I do that agency as well as independent event support and production. So if you want to run an event, I'm your guy. I'll take care of that for you.
If you're getting married and you like game music, call this guy.
Maybe post-pandemic, Christy and I will renew our vows and have a big party.
So I left MagFest at the end at summer 2019. I started, an event management and live music booking business at the start of 2020.
Oh.
So fantastic timing on that.
Well, it's more time to plan, right? Right?
And it's one thing I like. It's time to plan because there's never enough of it.
Wow. Well, again, thank you for spending the time, taking the time out to hang out with us on the show. I know it's it's tough to sit down for 2 hours. All of us video gamers having a really difficult time staying still for 2 hours part of the day. For our listeners, before I forget, I'm going to let you know that our Patreon special episode is happening next week. So if you're listening to this now, that means it's going to happen on April 1st, a Thursday, at 7:30 Eastern Daylight Time.
Ooh.
EDT. That's East Coast. So if you're not sure, just figure out where New York is in Google, and that's going to be our time zone. And the topic is tavern music or bar music. So just in a bar stage of a game or tavern stuff, or it could be old school, it could be new school, it could be something personal to you. That's the music
you would listen to in a bar, even if it's not music from a bar in the game.
Exactly. You don't have to be the person at the bar, but maybe in the game, they're going to be at the bar. But that's the stuff we're going to be listening to next Thursday. So if you're a member of our Patreon, you get access to that, and we'll see you there. But until then, if you want to get in contact with me and Pernell, if you have a track suggestion, a topic suggestion, or if you're in a band, or if you're a remix artist, or if you know a remix artist or a cover band, please let us know and send us an email.
rhythmandpixels@hotmail.com.
And for a full track listing of this episode and all of our episodes, and access to all of our episodes, check out the website.
www.rhythmandpixels.com.
Or just Rhythm.
First time I ever did www.
No, actually, last week you did it too, and I was like, I'm not gonna. That's fine. You can put the W's in there. Maybe he likes to say
Web.
that. Yeah, World Wide Web dot Rhythm. So check that out there. You can also listen to Rhythm and Pixels Radio, which is a 24/7 radio stream on YouTube, youtube.com/rhythmandpixels. Plays nothing but 8-bit and 16-bit classics and deep cuts. It's a curated list. It's about 20 hours long. Pernell is laughing. What happened
We're
there?
both laughing because I'm like, I was going to follow up and say, and now we're going to add the tracks from this episode to the radio station.
Yeah, all
More
it-
deep cuts.
We could actually. I try and I maintain that station is going to be 8-bit and 16-bit, so that DMCA or DCMA doesn't take it down. Because so far no strikes, which is good for us.
Knock on wood.
So check that out there. And we have new t-shirts available at rhythmandpixels.com/merch. So if you want a classic hip-hop Run VGM t-shirt or a really silly podcast joke TGIF versus Capcom t-shirt, they just came out. I'm actually going to show it to...
They're so freaking cool.
Oh my god, that's good.
on the front is the classic logo, but on the back is Mega Man with Carl Winslow. So wear that and confuse your friends and family. So check that out at rhythmandpixels.com/merch. And if you'd like to support the show, just tell your friends about it. Tell people about it. Say, hey, I like video game music. Hey, do you listen to podcasts? If you're at Thanksgiving and you're talking to your family and they're saying, oh, well, such and such is sick and we're not going to see them. And, they can't come around because of the pandemic. Just say, no, just talk about video game music, nonstop video game music. Talk about how Pernell is a wonderful person and that they should listen to his voice.
Or just dig a hole in your backyard, bury a USB stick containing episodes, and then water it twice a week.
And you'd be surprised at the tree that grows.
If a tree grows, by all means, call the Ghostbusters because something's up.
Instead of fruit, it's Game Boys. You can also support us by going to patreon.com/rhythmandpixels, and at every donation level you get access to a weekly sequel episode of me and Pernell and sometimes a guest hanging out talking about other things, usually more real stuff if you're into that sort of thing. You also get access to a monthly live stream of us recording the following episode, and you get there's lots of visual gags, and you can chat with us while we're doing the show, lots of jokes, and that's always a really good time. And at the highest levels, we like to thank our Patreon members.
Cat, let them talk. Mute the microphone.
Is there a cat in the room? I had my dog chasing the cat earlier. I got a little out of hand. So we really thank our Patreon members, Frankly Zappa, Mike Myers. Oh, there's a cattail. That's cute. Fashion86, That Nick Walker, Ed Wilson of the VG Embassy, Mats Holmqvist, Michael Jennings, Davey Cakes, Justin Bieber from XVGM Radio.
Justin Schneider!
That's his name. Sonic Medley, Taco, Harold Howard, Dave Taylor, Reinhard Zelkova, Andreas Milberg, Dan Loughton, Sleepy S'more, Steve Miller, The Autistic Gamer 89, Cameron Worma, Christopher Senstrom, Bobby Arson from One Up Funk, Wicked Sephiroth, Carlos Kung Fu Carlito from the Heroes 3 podcast, Michael Bridgewater or Meebri from the Forever Sound Version podcast, and Brian Pitt. So thank you all so much for your continued support of our show. It's always good seeing you here. It's always also good seeing you in our Discord channel. You can get access to our Discord channel on our website, and you can send us memes and let us know
wholeheartedly agree.
Any corrections from the show. And I have a whole whatever channel on there of just me baking bread. You can see all my bread. I bake like 3 times a week. There's a lot of bread on this Discord. There's more bread than video game music on our Discord.
the bread baking podcast.
It's true.
I'd also like to just generally state thanks, Fashion86, and also Cameron Leonard for reaching out to talk about games that you played that were talked about on the show. I like to talk about games that I'm playing, and I'm always blasting, you should try this game! But it's not just speaking to the ether. I genuinely want to hear people's thoughts on the games they're playing, so thank you for reaching out to me and talking about it. It's much appreciated.
Oh, I also want to give one more shout out to a really nice email sent to us by Khalid Hamad, our friend from Germany. Did you read that email, Pernell?
I did, and honestly, every email that he sends in makes me freaking smile like a duck.
I'm really happy that we're bringing some smiles to listeners from all over, and then we're making a difference. We're saving the world, Pernell.
Well, who knows?
We're planting trees.
We're planting USBs.
We're USBs. We're planting USBs. We're hiding USBs. I don't know if that's good for the plant, for the ground or the earth. If you put USBs in the ground,
a groundhog or two might get a nice appreciation out of it.
So before I ramble on any longer and it gets any later, Pernell, aren't you as surprised at how awake I am?
I genuinely am. It must be the coffee.
Yeah, no. I just ate dinner late. Again, thank you to Nick for hanging out with us. Thank you, Nick.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you for your full cool mittens who decided to show up at the last minute of the episode as well.
Okay. Say hi, Sonny.
Sonny.
Sonny was the unofficial mascot of MagFest for a good long while there.
Yes.
Well, thank you both. Thank you, Nick, for being on the show. Pernell, I'll see you next week. Everybody else, I'll see you at StatesyCon. No, I'll see you
94
on episode 27-4. I don't think we've picked a topic yet, but we'll get there. My name is Rob Nichols.
And I'm Pernell.
Have a good week. Stay safe. We'll see you next time.
And remember, it's fun when we talk about deep cuts and we love to dig deep into the archive to say, hey, here's some cool tracks. Check them out, guys. But as we all know, every once in a while you get the person who likes to tell you, oh, you're not deep cut enough. You're not cool enough because everyone's played that game you're talking about. And that's not really what you want to go for when it comes to this whole hobby. We're all here to have fun. And maybe for that person, that is a deep cut. That's deep for them, and they're sharing it with you. So smile about it, rock out with it, and share some deep cuts of your own. I mean, at the end of the day, it's all bologna from the deli, and you're going to eat it. So whatever, just enjoy the meat. And if you're a vegetarian, we can get some tempeh in there, too. It's all good. At the end of the day, though, exchange good music. Don't put people down because they don't have the elite knowledge you have.
Don't be a cut keeper.
Yes.